This is all about fear. And if people were not afraid, you would see this disappear literally overnight.
There is no existence of a virus, and unfortunately you need a child to be able to point to the emperor and say he's got no clothes on.
Once we can understand that it's a model that is bankrupt, that's built on fraud and misinterpretation, then we can liberate ourselves from it and move towards something much more truthful.
All right, welcome everyone today. We have gathered a amazing panel of guests to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming film by Marcy Cravat with contribution from myself called Terrain, which the world premiere is coming up on February 5th for part 1 and February 12th for part 2. So everyone, please sign up to watch the world premiere for free at terrainthefilm.com. So the panel that I have with me today, we've all been facing quite a bit of struggle and adversity, especially when we're talking about refuting the claims of virology. So what we tried to do in this film is to get at those key scientific issues to show the misinterpretations of virology that have led us to the current moment. We also focus on the human struggles involved in what we've been facing worldwide for the last 2 years. And then what we do is we segue and introduce a new beginning in health and biology, where we start to get at the terrain theory as a kind of an umbrella of natural healing. And we start to explore various aspects of that through both artistry and healing. And we want to give a message of inspiration that we can move towards a new, freer, and much better future in terms of our health and understanding of nature. So let me introduce our esteemed panel for today. Starting to my left, we have Sally Fallon, who is currently a principal of the Weston A. Price Foundation and also the co-author of the book Contagion Myth with Dr. Tom Cowan. Thank you for joining us today, Sally. Next, we have Marcy Cravat, known to me as Marcy, who is a filmmaker from California who is intensely curious about the science behind the pandemic. And we formed an amazing brother and sister type of collaboration. And she is the brilliant cinematographer, writer, director, producer, who's won several awards for her films under the name of Fallon Pictures. So welcome and thanks for joining us, Marcy.
Thank you, Andy.
And next we have the renowned virologist, Stefan Lanka, one of the only virologists who has been able to see the misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the principal virology experiments and is famously known for a big lawsuit where the essentially highest court in Germany vindicated him for his contention that there are no scientific papers proving the existence of measles. And he's been involved in this type of medical freedom activism since the AIDS era, and recently has been conducting some really important, in fact, crucial experiments, the control experiments of virus isolation, and those will be debuted in our film. So welcome, Stefan.
Welcome. I'm more than happy to be able to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And going down the list, we have 2 more guests. So the next is Veda Austin. And Veda is a very fascinating contributor to this film because she brings the bridge between science and art and following up on the work of Emoto with respect to water and its properties of memory, intelligence, and artistry, brings a new dimension to this topic. So welcome, Veda.
Thank you so much.
And last but absolutely not least, the veritable bioterrain health professional, Dr. Barre Lando, who has expertise in so many fields and has so many titles, from spagiricist to biogeometry expert to biodynamic farmer. Barre has done everything and adds amazing wisdom to the film. He has been way ahead of the curve in terms of the waking up revolution in medicine and biology. So welcome, Barre.
Thank you, Andy, and quite an honor to be with you all here today.
So I want to go around and give everyone a chance to sort of speak about what their experience has been like working on the film and what your experience has been like just going against the grain, because, you know, many of us, not only are we going against the mainstream narrative of COVID as being part of this sort of health freedom movement, but within that opposition, we have a viewpoint that is very controversial to some. And we've been, you know, marginalized to some degree, but we carry on and we are getting more and more attention to this important issue. So Barre, why don't you start us off about, you know, what your experiences have been like, or whatever you want to say about the film today.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. You know, the last couple years since the alleged pandemic, it's been actually very encouraging to me, because I spent 40 years as a clinician doing biotrain medicine. And when I transitioned from the conventional side of medicine into, you know, naturopathy, biotrain medicine, you know, I learned from, you know, the old icons from the German school of microbiology and pleomorphism. I applied that in my clinical practice. And so my practice was very private over the years, and I was fortunate enough to help thousands of people with biotrain concepts. And through my own experience, I found that the results I was getting in the clinic when I treated the biotrain, in other words, treated the body instead of trying to make war against a microbe or a virus, it had a very happy outcome. And this, you know, brings us back to the AIDS era as well, in the 80s, especially. And I had a lot of AIDS patients. And, you know, again, things weren't matching up. People were actually getting better. And then I saw a big correlation in positive results when people elected to go off their AIDS drugs. And a lot of so-called viral conditions besides AIDS also, you know, produce clinical results when, in fact, there is really no correlation to the test that supposedly indicated a virus etiology in the first place. And of course, those were, you know, before PCR, and they were, you know, mostly antibody tests back then. And that led me down a lot of roads of research, you know, to make sense out of my clinical experience. And, you know, again, things just didn't add up. So I became a disbeliever in the virus theory a long time ago. And so
Well,
what
Barre,
I mean by being in, go ahead, please.
Well, I just want to notice, like, because I think you bring up a really important principle, right, that we've all kind of come to, everyone in this panel or who's been associated with this film, which is that what we observe in the real world, in our experience, doesn't necessarily match up with the official narrative that we've been taught in school or that we're told is true. And, you know, something allows us to recognize that and then question it and go further and, right, not be afraid to pursue the truth, even if it's not what the mainstream agrees with.
Precisely. And what I mean by being encouraged over the last 2 years, I see this alleged pandemic actually exposing truth. Now, in my 40 years of practice, I had to be pretty much under the radar because our clinic was producing results and we did do things in different ways. And vested interests, of course, aren't favorable to those sorts of things. And so I was always marginal and felt like an outlaw all these years. And now in these last couple of years, especially since I've gotten out to, tell my story a little bit, more and more people are understanding that the narrative is flawed at best. And that's, after all these years, I feel a bit vindicated that, many people from both sides of the fence are really comparing notes and saying, yeah, something doesn't smell right here. So I feel very positive about the way things are going. And I sum it up by saying, everything has a silver lining. And I think we're already starting to see that.
I totally agree. I mean, this is just an amazing opportunity, and so many more people are, learning the reality in many, many fields. So we are blessed in that respect. So let's go over to Veda. Veda, you come at this at a little bit of a different angle. So, what's it like sort of having a foot in this world and, observing from your point of view, at 16,000 feet, what's been happening among all of the medical community and the people at large?
Well, it's been so interesting for me seeing it from slightly different perspective. I see the world in a kind of threefold where there is the science, the art, and consciousness. And there's this wonderful kind of marriage between them. And I think that that's where the real truth can be seen, when you actually kind of integrate all of them together. Art can tell us so many things and so many truths, because we don't need to discard it as, how does this happen? We can simply ask, what does this mean to me? And then it has value. So for me, a lot of things have been happening. I really loved filming with Marcy. It was so much fun. She was great to work with, and we went out and about in the high desert, and it was wonderful, and she made me feel really comfortable. It's wonderful for me to be part of this film, because I know I bring something quite different to the table, and my work has exploded really since we filmed this. And I've discovered something quite interesting that actually we've captured, but may not have even realized that we captured during the film, is that my work kind of sits in the camp of art, but now it also sits in a camp of what I would term as language, which I'm starting to develop. And I've discovered something which I call hydroglyphs, which are repeated patterns that basically that I see that have meaning. So, for example, if I'm looking for the word pharmaceutical, I will write the word, put the petri dish of water on top of it, then remove it, freeze it using my technique, and take a photograph. And what I see is a syringe. So I've done that to say that it's one hydroglyph, I have to have done that 50 times and seen the same result. And I have 31, actually now 32 hydroglyphs, which have meaning. And what's interesting is that other people around the world now are starting to work with me, and they're also seeing these glyphs. And what they're telling us about is fascinating. And so when we filmed it, what I shared actually with Marcy later on were some photos that I took in regards to this topic that have hydroglyphs in them. And so it's very interesting, because the kind of camp of art is incredibly beautiful. You can have conscious communication with water, and water can actually seem to give you very expressive, important messages. So you can have that aspect where, for example, you can put someone's photograph under the petri dish of water and you might see their features or their face appear. But when you integrate hydroglyphs, you can actually start reading messages. And so that's where my work has really taken me in the last, year or so now. And it's been amazing.
Well, Veda, this is really so fascinating and so important, because by pursuing this from the artistic side, right, it's so much more accessible to people, and they can easily see, through this type of beauty, that water just has properties that we have no idea about, right? And of course, they have amazing consequences for health and biology because, 99 out of every 100 molecules in our body are water.
Absolutely.
So I have a question though, because, this aspect of like distilling this kind of language from water, and you bring up the example of the syringe. So is that a reflection of our cultural state that the water is reflecting back at us? Or, so in other words, if we did that experiment with, an indigenous group in South America that didn't use Western medicines, would it come up as something different for them? And I'd be fascinated, of course, to know about this.
I love that question. Well, firstly, I started doing this work. It's taken me 3.5 years. So I actually started getting this syringe even before the pandemic. And so I only just started really testing for it recently with the word pharmaceutical. But my partner's actually doing some work right now, which is all around plant medicines. And this is with the crystallography and the method that I use. And what he's seeing is these repeated images as well that I can talk about at another time. So I think that a lot of indigenous cultures don't really use the pharmaceutical drugs. So they have their own plant medicines. And so there would be another glyph for natural medicines, I would imagine. So the interesting things about these glyphs is that they have layers of meaning. And so one of them, for example, is what I would term as the dagger glyph. It looks a lot like a dagger. And I discovered it originally because people would ask me, can water understand different languages? And water doesn't read the word, it reads the energy of the word. So of course it can understand different languages. This is a very broad way of speaking, it's very human, but so you have an idea. So I wrote the word pugione, which is Latin for dagger. And in the ice, I saw this dagger. But then I started seeing daggers in other places in my petri dishes, and I don't even have a dagger. So I'm like, what's going on with this dagger thing? And so I thought, well, okay, let's see. Does it really mean dagger? And so I started to write the word dagger. Sure enough, I kept seeing daggers. I'm like, okay, but I don't know what this means. So I thought perhaps it has layers of meaning. So I thought, well, what do you do with a dagger? It's to inflict physical pain. So I wrote the word physical pain, and I got the dagger over and over and again. And then I tried, well, let's just try emotional pain. And sure enough, I got the dagger. And then I also discovered that the dagger means danger. It took me nearly a year to actually do just this work on that one glyph, because it takes such a long time and a lot of commitment amongst children and everything else. But it was very interesting because just like hieroglyphs have layers of meaning and that sharing a conceptual kind of language, so too do these hydroglyphs. And it's so fascinating in that way, and that having other people around the world help me to find these layers of meaning has been incredibly helpful. I have someone from Slovenia, someone from India, another person from the US. We all speak, or most of us speak different languages and think in different languages. We're using different water, and yet we're still seeing these same images show up in the ice and the water.
That's amazing.
So,
it really lends support to the idea of, an Akashic information field, right? Known by other names, like talked about by Rupert Sheldrake and others. But really just incredible stuff, Veda. So thank you so much for your contributions.
it's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Stefan, you're up next and coming to us from the sunset in Germany. And Stefan, you've kind of been at this for a long time and have, faced a lot of, adversity. So how have things been for you, and what was it like for you to participate in this film?
Wow. This film marks definitely the turning point in the history of humankind, because you will see we are leaving the good bad notion behind us, and we are heading for a deeper understanding. To be honest, when I came across the misconceptions of virology in the AIDS time, I suffered really like a pig in a slaughterhouse. You know, why? Because I thought it was betrayal, that there are some strange people behind the scenes manipulating, putting consciously fear upon the population. And I thought I had to fight. And in this tension, it was really hard, really hard. And the next thing happened to me. I understood slowly but surely that all the conceptions, or most of the conceptions of modern medicine in chronic disease, is definitely false. And so I was in a big, deep situation not to be able to answer the question. Primarily for mothers, I try to convince not to vaccinate their children, right? What is this then if it's not a virus? And I could not answer it until the year 2000. I ran, working at this time in the alternative cancer field, into Dr. Hammer. So from this time, I began quickly to feel confident with life, and slowly but surely, I opened myself to history. Where do all those concepts do come from? And I realized that's our culture. That our settings happened long ago, so we are not aware of them, that we are forced to think in material explanations only. This is like the cave Plato is describing, right? And with this understanding that there is no intention, bad intention behind, but mechanism, and one of them, Ivan Illich, the great Croatian thinker, outlined in his book in 76, The Nemesis of Medicine, that medicine is forced to exaggerate every year to have a surplus in its economy, what they're doing. And slowly but surely it becomes dangerous, but none of them it's realizing, like a frog being in water, slowly but surely heated up, you know. So, and in the end, actually it was 4 years before I ran into Hammer, I ran into an East Berlin biologist, Dr. Peter Augustin. He made me aware of the aspects of water, that the substance we are all out of, it's the membrane substance water is building. And this is the basis where all those effects, Veda, you are talking about, are occurring, right? And exact this kind of science or understanding what the substance, which in former times were called ether, is the very basis to understand life. So this is not only art what you are doing basic science. You are able to reproduce things, and with this knowledge it becomes even more understandable that and how out of a word becomes flesh, and how a word can hit us. A word can not only kill us, a word can heal us. And what Hammer showed, that a word, when it happens to us like a trauma, can hit the bone, the stomach, our mind, the heart, whatsoever. And here I found the really scientific proof that we are a materialized consciousness, every part of our body, which it's aware of its function at a certain sites, inside, outside the body, but in the context of the body. And if you go deeper, inside the context of the cosmos. And what you all are doing, contributing to this project of Andy and Marcy Terrain, this shows the accumulation point we are in as a human being, and that now we become a basis, living the good-bad notion behind us and for a deeper understanding. And this is a historical moment, and therefore I think everybody can see and feel that I am deeply happy and honored being part of this. So thank you all for this great present for all human, and not only human, this is for the whole creation, because we are one. So thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Stefan. There's so much depth to what you said.
Mm.
And it's really been great to have you part of this project. So, Sally, we met recently in person at the Weston A. Price Foundation conference, and that must have been a huge undertaking. So you have really just been contributing so much to educating people. So tell us a little bit about, how you got involved with Tom and writing that book, and what your experience has been like.
Okay. So, first of all, I want to say how much fun it was to meet you at the conference, and also to work with Marcy and see her at the conference, and sit at the dinner table and have really nice discussions. So it was great to have you. Well, Andy, I've made a career of being a contrarian. I was a contrarian since I was a little girl. My parents didn't know what to do with me. And so I have challenged a lot of firmly held beliefs, such as the belief that animal fats are bad, the belief that cholesterol is bad, the belief that raw milk is going to kill you. I've challenged the claims that soy is a health food. So challenging a virus, this is just all in a day's work for me. And I was very glad to see the real scientists, I'm not a scientist, I'm a writer, just pick apart this crazy way that they have tried to prove this virus, because they actually can't find it. This virus that's killing us and spreading and so forth, they can't find it in the tissues. They can't find it in the fluids of the lung or the nose or the saliva. They just can't find it there. So they've had to come up with some kind of crazy procedure, which they claim is showing a virus. What I have done and working with Tom, we go way back. We wrote a book together called The Fourfold Path to Healing. And I would say that Tom has
that book.
Yes, which has had a long life. It still sells well. And Tom was the first to organize a seminar for me, and really my first supporter. So in the contagion myth, my contribution was being a kind of Nancy Drew of so-called infectious diseases and going through them one by one and showing alternative explanations and showing that what we have maintained, that three things cause disease. It's the poor nutrition, toxic environment, toxins in the environment, that can be emotional toxins as well, and an injury. So currently I'm working on TB, and I've come up with something really interesting. There is a disease called siderosis, which is poisoning by iron oxide. And these symptoms are identical to TB. And the era of, the real epidemic of TB was a kind of Iron Age, where people were burning coal. One of the chief effluents of coal is iron oxide. There was just a lot of iron. There was steam engines, and there were, a lot of iron involved in the Industrial Revolution. And one thing that brought iron into the drawing room was the cast iron stove, which came in 1790. And all of a sudden, people were kind of sitting in iron oxide. So I'm very looking forward to getting that out there. I'd just like to close on a dream that I had, and our dreams do speak to us. And I was with a friend of mine who we'd both been very active in opposing childhood vaccinations, and we were standing in a tower, and down below we could see all these, and this was in the dream, sick people, right? So these are people who adhere to the notion of getting stuck with vaccinations. So they were sick people, and they were trying to climb in the tower with us, and we kept pushing them away, but we had the advantage because we were in the tower. And so we had a bit of a more complete view of the whole situation and the whole question of vaccinations. Anyway, I'm very much looking forward to seeing your film have a tremendous impact. I think the work that all of us are doing has already had a tremendous impact. The narrative is crumbling, and not just for COVID, but for all of these other diseases that we try to treat with vaccination.
Well, thank you so much, Sally. That was great, and we're so glad that you're a part of the film. Now, Marcy, I've been saving you for last, as you can tell. And I just want to say, it's just been an amazing experience working with you. I can't imagine life without 10 to 20 text messages from you every single day. So, but I want to give you, the opportunity. This is your film, really, right? You're the creative force behind this. You have, picked my brain down to the deepest layers. And, you have synthesized it into a work of creation, a work of art. So what's it been like for you? And, what are your thoughts about our big upcoming premiere?
Well, I have to say, from a very humble standpoint, and I don't want to get emotional about it, so I'm going to try and keep myself collected here, but I love you guys. And, you've changed my life, all of you, in one way or another. And I have wonderful memories with every single one of you. I have deeper relationships with some of you that have really kind of changed my whole approach to life, which has been sort of at the same time very rattling in a way, because it's pushed me into sort of a broader scope of understanding, and it doesn't necessarily jive with the rest of my friends or family. But I can say that I'm so fortunate as a filmmaker to be in a position to get what I call front row seats to the topics that I'm interested in. And I go through my own metamorphosis. I look back at my other films, and as beautiful as they are, my opinions have changed on some of the topics that were covered in those films, like global warming, for example, which I no longer support that narrative. Fortunately, the films weren't really about that, but they were there. That was an underlying theme within them. And I choose not to go back and edit my work, because I think we all show growth and understanding in the work that we do. And I've noticed that with some of you. In fact, I was just editing a little piece with you, Stefan, the other night, where you made a really great statement about feeling like you believed something, and then you were embarrassed that you believed it, and now you were ready to move into something deeper in terms of your understanding. And we highlighted that little quote, that little piece, because it showed like a light bulb moment. And all I can say is, with each and every one of you, I've been in your homes, I've spent the nights in your houses, I've eaten at your tables with you, I've hung out with some of your kids. I've got to walk around farms and pet pigs, and I got to go out into the desert with Veda and actually do actual water samples, and then I came home and did some myself. I mean, I got to experience Veda's happiness at just becoming engaged, because I met her just a couple of days after that. I've gotten to meet wonderful wives like Deb, and I've gotten a front row seat. And Andy, I know I've driven you crazy with my questions every day, but you told me at the very beginning that it was actually fortunate that I didn't have any science background. And I don't have any science background. I was like not paying attention in science class at all. And I like flunked out of algebra, and, I was a language person, and, I just was not a science person at all. And so when I got involved with this project, I was a little bit nervous that I would be able to process the information. But because you were so patient with me, all of you, Barre, you've been great too, just taking the calls, fielding the calls, and helping me understand. and bringing into it a bigger scope of spirituality that I'm very drawn to. And Sally, you too, because you shared with me the experience with your father, communicating with your father who's passed long ago. I read that and it just went straight to my heart. And Stefan, we wanted to come to Germany and really get to know you. We didn't get to do that, which is so unfortunate because it would have been so much fun. Maybe that will happen in the future, because Andy and I have talked about making episodes, like hour-long episodes going forward, of all kinds of topics. And certainly we can circle around back into a lot of what we've already touched on, because the film is 2 hours and literally we touched on most of everything, although we did go into depth on the germ theory. But we touched on other things and didn't really give them their fair time, because it would have been an 8-hour film. So basically what I'm saying is it's been a great experience for me, because I now have a whole new way of looking at the world, and I have friendships that are so much better than, I don't want to say than the ones that I had. That sounds so not okay, but you know what I'm saying? It's this, I've really, really been the one that's benefited so much from this, and I'm just very, very grateful to you all.
Oh, Marcy, thank you so much. We want everyone out there to sort of join this family, because it really is, that type of environment. And I wish we could all get together in one place for this premiere, but it's just so difficult to travel in the world right now. So you'll have to join us virtually. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share a little bit and to join one another for a little bit of camaraderie during this apocalyptic scenario that we're living through. Everyone out there, please don't forget to sign up to watch the world premiere of Terrain the Film at terrainthefilm.com. Absolutely free, a week from this Saturday on February 5th. We hope to see you there. Thank you and goodbye.